What's going on, Peak family? We have the focus map up for everyone in this series of this, as Larry calls it, the Peak Educational Series. Um, and the focus map, and another, I would say, mind manage, body feel, activity that he does in this podcast is just, again, it's the beginning stages of like 12-part series, 13-part series, of these things that help you with your mental, I would say, mental fortitude within your archery game. So yeah, enjoy this. Again, you got the audio version for the masses, but if you want access to the full version with the video and to see everything that's going on behind the scenes, go into the podcast details and click on Patreon. Go check that out. There's a listener membership. It's like $5 a month. And you can get access to every episode and everything at the Barebow Project as well, which has a ton of coaching content, including exclusive content from the seminars that I teach. I was just in Ben Avery, where USAT is, the Arizona Cup. I was just there this past weekend in Phoenix, teaching a 2-day seminar, and it was amazing. And there's even exclusive content from the seminar there. So that'll be it. Enjoy this episode of Peak Archery Project.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the third in our educational series. Yeah, Peak Archery educational series. So, and it has to do with focus mapping. And that's what we have down here that we're going to get to, a template for you to plan out what your conscious thoughts are going to be while you're shooting. So why do that? Why is that important? Well, it's important because you do a lot of practice to get your physical steps in order, and each physical step perfected so that those physical steps end with you releasing an arrow that lands in the middle. Okay, so we spend a lot of effort and time to, yeah. But most people that I know step up to the shooting line with a really good physical form and all the steps in order, but they think something different on every arrow. Their thoughts wander. I call it running the thought lottery. And if you run the thought lottery, you come up with something different on each and every shot, maybe several different thoughts during one shot. But yet you want to have the same result. You expect the same result, and it's not happening simply because your thinking is undisciplined. Okay, so that's why I developed this process of focus mapping. We can plot out our thoughts. Okay. Before we can talk about plotting our conscious focus, let's look at a little bit of what we know about our focus. And when we're executing an archery shot, we work with two different kinds of conscious focus, right? And to experience that, you can do this little exercise. I've done this with a lot of people. Okay, so take out a piece of paper, any piece of paper, and on the first line, sign your name. On the second line, sign it again. And the same on the third and the fourth. And you'll notice they all look very closely the same. Are they exactly the same? No. you're not a machine. Right? There are going to be little differences, but they're all very, very similar. So keep that in mind. Next step, in the next line, I want you to sign your name again, but this time with the opposite hand.
It doesn't look the same, Larry.
And it won't look the same. In fact, if I compared that to my third grade writing sample,
With
I
your
think it's
right
a
hand.
good match.
With your right
It's a
hand.
good match. Yeah. Okay. Next, let's do a little exercise here. I have Mickey Mouse's signature. Trace over Mickey's signature. Don't get off the marks, right? And if you had something there to trace, then, nope, I got off a little bit. Back on, back up here. If you had somebody else's name to trace, find it and trace over. Staying on the marks.
So for everyone that's going to do this, I will provide a link to the PDF for this document. I should have mentioned this before you started so that they can print this off and do this with you while you're doing it.
Yeah. So, yes, there, I did it. I got off the mark some.
I
Okay.
can't see that, but that's okay.
I can't see that there.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
it's still pretty it's still a little grainy for me to see it, but it's
There, I
tough.
can move that down a little closer and
It's just a little blurry.
yes, anyway.
Yeah, it's all right.
The point is that,
Focus
and I can
focus that
tell
back
you,
out. There you go.
yep. When I do this with a group, like say 8, 10, 12 people in a shooting school,
Sure.
the room gets dead silent. Dead silent. Because everybody is focusing on keeping the pen or the pencil on the marks. And so you're making a lot of decisions, right? So the pen moves a little bit, your eyes send that information to the brain, a correction is made, the next move is plotted, and on, and it goes very slowly.
Yeah.
Very slowly. And so our focus, our conscious focus, how we're using our attention is different when we're doing this tracing and when we're signing left-handed. For me, left-handed, my opposite hand. That's a different kind of focus than what I used up here for my signatures. And so those two kinds of focus are what we use when we're shooting an arrow. So let's look at it. Up here where I sign my name, something I've done thousands and thousands of times, right? I did this using mostly right brain creative thinking or body feel. This signature has a feel to it. I just simply get it started and it goes by feel. Right? Mostly right brain. I've trained my body, my mind to run my body motions to make that signature by feel. When I switched left-handed, you saw me fumble with the pen there. Okay, I was making decisions from the very get-go. How do I hold this pen and get it in my fingers? And then, oh yes, now I've got to make an L motion, right? And then I make the decision, okay, now I have to make an A motion. And and again, I'm using left brain analytical work, making decisions. and trying to guide an action as I'm making decisions. All right. And it didn't go well. So this is mind manage focus when we're using this decision-making process. When we operate by feel, okay, I'm calling that body feel focus. And we use those two different kinds, or we should use those two different kinds of focus to complete an archery shot. And we'll explain how that works and how you make a plan with it. There are some other kinds of focus. What we're using here, this mind manage and body feel, are very narrow focus abilities. We're assigning our attention very narrowly. You can assign your attention to broad focus. For instance, I'm going to start doing my income taxes, and I need a lot of documents in front of me. And so from all those documents, it's rather broad scope for me to think about and pull together certain information from this broad array of papers and information. So that's broad internal focus. When you step to the shooting stake on a field target or a 3D target, you need a broad focus for feel. This is an uphill target, right? Where's wind coming from? What about shadows? Where's the sun coming from? So you have this broad array of information that you feel. You're absorbing some of that just by feel, like you do anytime you go outside, right? You're collecting this information. But we use a rather narrow focus. I want you to do one more little exercise here. I want you to make a series of 8 small circles across the page. Something like that. And when you do that, I want to point out something for you. When you started by making a couple of decisions. Okay, where am I going to put this circle? And how big am I going to make it? And so you made the first one. And then the second one, you tried to duplicate it. But by the time you get to the third and fourth ones, you're off and running and doing it by feel, duplicating your feel. So you started with mind manage, some decision making. You finished out by feel. All right, that's significant. We shift our focus while we did this. We shifted it. All day long, you are shifting focus from one kind to another, back and forth, constantly, all day, with what you're doing. Yeah, whatever that is, shooting or work or whatever. Okay. So we have a couple different kinds of focus here, mind manage, body feel, and we shift back and forth between those. That's the concept. Okay. So when you step to the shooting line to make an archery shot and set your stance, I suggest that you do that as using mind manage focus. In other words, you consciously think about your feet, consciously engage with that, and check that off the list. And there's a bunch of reasons why we do this. All right, we'll talk about that in a minute. Next, consciously consciously engage with the knock or the D loop as you put the knock on it. Be consciously aware of that. Focus on that. Check it off the list. So this mind manage focus here, mind manage focus, is like operating a checklist. Yep, I'm setting my feet, got that done. Next, knock the arrow, got that done. Next, oh, I'm going to hook up the release aid, right? So I am going to hook up, check that off the list. Set the bow hand, check that off. And so we do that with the release hand, the posture check, setting the bow up, presenting the bow to the target, and into the draw and load. Okay. So why do this? Several reasons. These steps have to get done. That's one. They have to get done in the right order. That's two. And thirdly, if you're checking these off the list, you're not thinking about something else. You're not thinking about the past or the present. Right? You are thinking in the present with what you are doing. And so you will not be distracted if you have this plan and stick to it. Those on the thought lottery will think about who knows what here. Oh, I've got to shoot a 30 on this end. If I want to keep up to the next to me. Well, that's future thinking, right? And besides, you can't put 3 arrows on your string at one time to shoot a 30. So you're biting off more than you can chew, right? So, and that's not going to contribute to making this shot. So engage in this mind managed focus of checking off the feet, knocking the arrow, hooking up the release aid, setting the bow hand, setting the release hand, and then a big one right here. I'm finding that a lot of compound archers that I work with skip over this.
Hey, Larry, it looks like it's out of focus right now. It's hard to see.
Is that out of focus?
Yeah, it's probably just an autofocus thing. Still a little bit blurry.
Better? A little blurry.
Still a little blurry.
Let me see if I have a focus. No, I don't.
Or exposure, maybe. I'm not sure what the...
Did that do any good?
It's a little better, yeah. It's like sometimes, it looks like, does it autofocus?
Yeah.
I mean, that'll work. Yeah, that'll work. I think it was focusing on the back. You moving your hands in and out. It
It
gets...
might be focused on the back of my hand.
Yeah, which is fine. It just,
Okay. So posture check. I'm finding a lot of compound archers are skipping over this. They're getting their hands set and immediately raise up the bow as they're turning to the target. Feet moving sometimes. And they skip over this posture check. So what that amounts to is they have not set their launch pad in position so that they can launch from the same position every time. And in particular, the head position. So if you have a different head position on each shot, how can you expect the same result? So this posture check then starts from the ground up. Check the feet, check the knees, check the hips, check the shoulders, check the head, eyes on target. And so the last thing that gets set is the head. So we're checking off a very quick check, feet to head. Get the launch pad set, and then we raise up. Okay. And how high we raise is important. For me, with the compound, I know my scope's going to be above target, my bow hand is going to be below. And I'm seeing this in my vision because I've already turned my head to the target and I'm visually locked on to the target. So I'm seeing the target, the head is set to that, and I see my hand in unfocused vision is below the target spot. Scope is above. Right? And so that's the setup. And that might be a check where your hand is or where you see the scope. That's different for everybody, but we have this series of checkoffs that we do. And as you get more and more experience, this may get simpler.
Hey, Larry.
Yeah.
Bring your camera out away from the paper real quick. And then let's try to get that to focus again. And now bring it out a little bit more if you can. I want to see if it gets better. It was clear before. I don't know what happened. Now bring it back down. See if it refocuses. There we go, right there. Perfect.
Okay. It's probably getting off focus because of my hand in a way.
It could be. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay. So, as we said earlier, we want to check these things off. That's using our analytical brain, left brain, mind manage. But at some point, if we want to repeat at our highest level, we need to shift to body feel focus. And that shift occurs down here, somewhere around anchor for me, usually right at anchor. I'm shifting my focus to the feel of my back. And I'm loading that back, making sure that it's loaded and feeling it. It has that feel because I've trained it for thousands and thousands of shots. And I stay with that. Just like when you're aware of signing your name, you stay with that feel until the instant of release. And follow. You'll still feel it in the follow through. At that point, the arrow's gone, and we shift back to an analytical or mind managed style of focus, because now we're going to make decisions about what we see in the target.
Let's push that up so we can see from the bottom part. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, there we go.
Right. There we go.
Right there's good.
So we run our mind managed focus until we're nearing full draw at anchor, and we shift to the feeling in our back. And that's what I've been doing when I'm practicing my barebow for NASP
Sure.
this week and next week, and till we start on the 23rd. So yeah, I have to have that in place for the NASP bow.
Now, the natural question that's going to come up when someone watches this, they're probably
Yeah,
thinking it right about now because I know it popped in my head, is where do we start talking about aim?
aim. Okay, so
Because
the
obviously
aim.
it's not listed there for good reason, and I know why, but where do we talk about aim? And what's that conversation sound like?
um, okay, I'll use two terms here to describe this: aiming and sighting. Okay, so the aim begins back here when you set up the bow. Before you set up, you set your posture, the head turned to the target, and you visually acquired the target. Aiming begins right there. You are looking at the target spot, not with your most intense focus, no, because we can't do that for very long. But you have visually acquired the target. Your head is fixated in that direction. The rest of your body is fixated in that direction. In other words, you set the launch pad. And you do that the same every time, as nearly as you can as a human being. So this is where aiming begins. And aiming is going to continue through release and follow through until the arrow hits the target. We're going to try to focus, keep our vision focused on the target in that direction the whole time. Okay. Now, sighting begins when some reference point in between your eye and the target comes in line with the target. So that could be for barebow the point of an arrow. For recurvers, that could be a circle aperture or a pin. For me, it's an O-ring in a scope. Others, it's a dot in a scope. All right, that comes in line, okay, after anchor. So somewhere in here, the sight joins the process, okay? And so the sight accompanies until the instant of release, because then it's gone, it's moved, right? The bow is discharged, the arrow point is gone if you were using that. So aiming goes on for quite a while, as I've defined it here. Aiming, incorporating the sight also, is not a very long period. And, you know, a lot of people get fixated on the sight thing. And so I'll remind them here, if you're fixing your eye focus on the sight pin, then you're going to try to manage that into the middle of the target. And that brings to mind exactly what you were doing when you were tracing Mickey's signature.
Yeah.
And this is a mind managed skill. And so what is lost? You've lost connection to body feel, to your backloading. And since that's the most important thing you do as an archer, you know, your game really suffers when you try to manage a sight pin, or some reference point. instead of staying with the feel and letting the sight reference point be in your unfocused vision. Yeah, so it's a matter of, where your conscious thinking goes when you look at that sight and decide you're going to focus your eye vision on it and guide it around. Yeah. And that gets to be a really slow process.
Yeah.
And yeah, you get into a lot of start stop with back tension.
Yeah.
Okay, let me guide the sight a little bit. Oh, okay, go back and okay, now I'm going to go with my back a little bit. Now I got to guide the sight. It's a little low. I got to get the sight up there. Okay, now back to the back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's an ugly process. So if I can move this out a little bit,
There you go.
having a plan then does a lot for you. It keeps you in the present. That's really the biggest thing. And it gets the steps done as they should be done. You're involved with that in the present, and you will more likely finish the shot in the present, feeling what's going on in your back. Right, so how do we practice this? Well, blank bail, right? Have your thought plan in front of you and practice doing it. Don't worry about a target. The next is practice this thinking pattern with a target, right? But not necessarily scoring. Eventually, though, you will get to practicing while scoring, right? Thinking these thoughts in this order while scoring. Then, when you step onto the stage at the Lancaster Classic, or even get to the elimination rounds, there's no question about what you're going to think on each and every shot.
Yeah.
There's no lottery.
Yeah.
You have a plan. And not many other people on the line will have a plan. You have a plan.
True
So
story.
you have a better chance to succeed. So the same old line of wisdom here. Plan your work, work your plan.
Yeah. You want to switch your camera?
Yep, we can switch back now.
You can just switch your camera and
I can go
do that.
facing right, world
Oh,
facing right.
no,
No,
I'm looking
world's
at
on
your
the
pens.
wrong side.
Yeah, looking at your
You're
pens.
facing.
There you go.
There we go.
Um,
Now, so when you're up to your ass in alligators, it's hard to remember the initial objective is drain the swamp. And so when you get to the big tournament, right, and all this, everything's going on around you, all this distraction, how can you bring yourself back to what you need to do? Well, this is why we develop a mantra.
Yeah.
A simple little phrase like pull it, load it, feel it. All right. Something that you can remind yourself, okay, what do I have to do here? Well, I've got to load my back. I've got to feel it. Whatever your mantra is, you recite it. Recite it as soon as you step to the line. And then in your head, recite it as you finish that loading in your back just before you release the arrow. Once you get to anchor, recite that in your head and do it. Feel it and do it. Yeah. So that's the concept of my focus map. There's another column there that we have to work on in the next podcast, and that is vision. And again, last week, my research partner and I Dr. John Roman collected more data from archers, including Frank. Frank was there to put the goggles on,
It
and
was interesting.
we know what he's doing with his eye pupils when he's shooting.
It was really cool. It was a
And
really cool
we have
experience.
that
I'm going to
recorded.
include some video of that in this podcast.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I have a couple
Or
of
no,
videos.
I'm sorry. I'll do it in the next one, not this one. The next one.
Yeah, I have a couple that I took that I'll send you. Did you
All
take
right.
some?
I took some of myself. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, what we do with our eyes, our visual focus, is a critical element, and we're researching that to find the difference. What are elite archers doing, and then what's everybody else doing? And there is a difference. We know that already,
Yeah.
significant difference. And so, how do we help everybody build their vision to be more successful? So we'll get into that next time.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
It's always one of my favorite drills that you do. The Mickey Mouse,
Oh
drill,
yeah, yeah, the signing thing.
signing
Yeah.
thing. But it's no, I like the way you're breaking this down, Larry, because you're taking it from just words to, the focus map is sort of it can be super involved, and it's
Yeah.
good that you're now breaking that down into, okay, let's start with this column, and here's where it applies, and this is what we got to
Yeah.
do. And we're breaking that into multiple episodes so that it's not just, yeah. So
Yeah. To look at the
it's,
finished chart, you think,
yeah,
my
you're seeing the
God, what's
finished
going on?
product.
This guy's crazy.
Yeah. But you realize like this takes time. This isn't something that you can just
Right.
do
Takes,
in an
yeah.
hour.
Well, how long does it take you to learn how to use a back tension release head? Boom.
Years to do it properly. Years.
Yeah,
I'll tell you.
I started in May of 1977,
But who's counting?
and I'm starting to understand how to use it
Yeah,
now.
I bet you are. I'm telling you, it was my experience last weekend. I had so much fun. So much fun. I haven't touched
Yeah,
a compound in
yeah,
forever.
good,
But
good.
but I was um
A little puckered.
first four ends. Yeah, oh yeah. First four ends were like, first end was like, oh man, I was sweating and I'm shaking and I'm like, this feels so weird. And I was like, oh my gosh, I hope this thing doesn't go off when I pull it back. And I mean, I have the click, so
Yeah,
I knew it wasn't
but
going to,
still.
but I still got amped up. And I was like, I know I can shoot. And but then by like the fifth, sixth end, like I settled in nice. And then by the last three ends, I shot 29, 29, 28, I think.
Oh,
And
yeah, okay, that's good.
yeah. Um
Yeah.
and it's incredible. Like it's one of those, it was just, but again, the reason I wanted to go back to it, and I was really mind managing the crap out of my first four ends, all of it,
Oh yeah.
because
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah. You have to.
I did not want to fire one of those into the clock. You know what I mean? Like that was above the target.
Yeah.
And
You were
and
mind
it was good.
managing the caution.
I 100% was 100%. Well, I was outside of my element. I'll admit it's been that long since I shot, a meaningful arrow with a target compound setup that I just, I needed to be really, really, really pay attention to it. And then as those ends went, I chipped away at the rust, and then I got to, okay, I just need to get to anchor and then let that pin float. And then the one thing I noticed is that like in the beginning, this is what it felt like. I don't think this is what's really
Yeah.
happening. I was pulling really hard here and
Yeah.
just holding here. And I was like, okay, I need to even those two out and do that
Yeah. Yeah.
together. And then
Resist and rotate. Yeah.
before I knew it, it was just that the how do I say this? The more even my tension and direction became
Hmm.
both directions, The
Yeah.
more even they became, the steadier
Mhm.
the
Right.
less float
Right.
I had.
Yeah. And you also rekindled those neural links
Yeah.
that are
Yep.
stored in the back of your brain.
Yep.
That's there. But the body takes a while to get any kind of feel going for it.
Yeah. Well, it took me, you figure 30 arrows takes an hour and a half to shoot or
Yeah.
more in a 60 arrow round, so it took me 45 minutes to 30 minutes, 35 minutes, whatever, probably first
Hmm.
3 or 4 ends. I think fourth end I really started getting the
Yeah.
feel for it again. So, but it's fun, and there's definitely, you know, it definitely reignited some like love for that discipline that I had. And a lot of barebow people don't get it because they never shot it. They don't, it's real nice
Yeah,
when you can just
they
hold
would
it in the
benefit
middle.
from the hinge release.
Yeah. And I'll tell
Hmm.
you what, I'm
Hmm.
excited to try it again. I think I might try to shoot some local field with it and maybe even a
Okay.
feeder or two. I'm curious to see what kind of scores I can shoot on a 50-meter game. I really think I can get close to 700 on a 720 round. I really do. But
Hmm.
we'll see. I know years ago I shot a 680 something. That was right when I first got back into competition archery, like 10, 12 years ago, maybe
Hmm.
longer. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm gonna shoot 3D with my son and my wife this year with it. That's really the reason I'm getting back into it, is to shoot 3D with them. But
Yeah.
anyway, all
Good.
right. Good stuff, Larry. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We had some
Thanks a
technical
bunch.
difficulties. We got through them, and
Yes.
we'll look at doing the next part of that focus map and this progression of
Yep.
series
Hmm.
with Mr. Larry Wise. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right, buddy. We'll see you
Glad you're
later.
joining
Have a good
in.
one. Bye.
All righty. You too. Have a good weekend.
See you.